We have a massive Toronto Maple Leafs injury update as the truth has been revealed behind Yani Hakampaa's injury, and his future in Toronto is a lot more clear now following this new report. So to break that down this episode of Leafs Digest, as well as a free agency update. We have some other targets that the Toronto Maple Leafs could be looking for, according to a few rumors, and they are forwards. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the percentage that aren't subscribed to the channel, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 11 or 12,000 now. So make sure to hit the button. It would mean the world to Darius and myself if you can do that. But Darius, let's dive right into it. There's a lot to go over today. Yani Hakampaa has been the guy that has kind of taken over some of the spotlight over the past few days, because once they signed him, we haven't heard anything about it. The signing is still not official yet, but we have some much needed clarity on the situation according to a new report that just dropped an hour or two ago. So let's just dive right into it. Let's not waste any more time here. So the Leafs appear to not be deterred by Yani Hakampaa's injury. A Dallas source confirmed to me that they would have liked to re-sign Hakanpaa, but feared he has a degenerative knee that would be tough to manage next season. But the Leafs certainly do not feel the same way, as their medical team had an extensive look prior to the signing and were very comfortable giving Shanahan and Treliving the green light to move forward. This is from Nick Kyprios, so take it with a bit of a grain of salt, but a pretty reliable reporter, especially from this front of things. So Darius, now, this actually makes a lot of sense. When you're looking at the Steve Simmons report, he said that he reached out to sources from Dallas and from other teams to get this information. But according to Nick Kyprios, who reached out to Toronto Maple Leaf sources, they did their due diligence, and it seems like he's going to be signed as a Toronto Maple Leaf, and it looks like, or at least all signs are pointing to him playing for the Leafs.
Yeah, and I would say it would be completely ludicrous and ridiculous if the Leafs ended up signing this guy without having any idea of what his medical records is or are, or, what's happened to him in the past. I think that would be ridiculous. So clearly they have an idea, but stop me if you've heard this before. A right-handed defenseman from Dallas assigned to the Leafs that has an injury that could be career-ending, and the Leafs are like, hey, you know what? Let's just try it out, right? Let's just try it out. It happened last season with John Klingberg, as you can see as well on the screen, and it only lasted 14 games, but maybe the Leafs know something, else that we don't know about this particular situation. So clearly, if they feel good enough to go ahead and sign him, it's not bad enough. Obviously, his career wouldn't be done, because it just wouldn't make sense to sign him and put him on LTIR like we were talking the other day. You can definitely do that, but why would they want to spend that money? Like, you would just have that money freed up anyway if you didn't sign him. The other interesting thing in all of this is he's not officially signed yet. They haven't posted anything, like they haven't put anything on the website. Like, obviously it was reported on July 1st that they signed him from like numerous insiders, but nothing official yet. So they're clearly waiting for something, whether it be physical, for him to do a physical like Matt Murray did in that whole story a couple of years ago. We don't know exactly what it is. It's interesting, but clearly they seem like he's healthy enough to come to the Leafs. So
yeah, and that's the big thing. Again, we're looking at him last year. He still played 64 games last year, missed some time in the playoffs, and 32 years old. And he's a big guy, and I would love to see him in a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform. But like you mentioned, it seems good, at least confident from the Leafs front. But we look back to last year, now it's a bit of a different situation. John Klingberg was making a lot more money than the Toronto Maple Leafs new signing, Yani Hakampaa. So I would, again, if he ends up being hurt, the 2 years at 1.5 million AAV is not that bad. You can swallow that and you can stomach that. And obviously they sent Klingberg away to Robidas Island, but with Hakanpaa, I don't think that would really, at least we're at the point now where he's not signed yet. Now, if there's a world where they sign Hakanpaa and then he plays 5 games and then gets hurt, that would be a little bit rough, I would assume. And I don't even know if they'd send him to Robidas Island at this point with the amount of money that he makes. But the point is, I don't mind it. I'm happy with the signing if they can make it go through, but this is a very key update. This is the first time we've heard anything about the signing and about the injury from a Maple Leafs insider. I don't really consider Simmons a Leafs insider. He's kind of just gets his sources from a bunch of different places. But any final thoughts on this? Very solid addition if they can keep him healthy at the very least. And I think that all things are pointing to them. And that's what you mentioned, Darius, a few days ago when they made the signing. They had to do their due diligence, and they definitely did before signing him. It's not like Simmons would know more than the front office.
Yeah, they must have done, like, they must know, right? There's no way they signed him blindly like that and they had no idea what his records are. They're clearly waiting for something. Maybe he has to do an updated physical or something like that, or maybe they're waiting on a doctor to make a decision, right, to make it official. But if he can play, if he's healthy enough to play, I think he'll be effective. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be a top line or a top pairing guy. He's not going to be second pairing, right? Probably third pairing on the right side, get in a couple games, probably won't play the whole season or anything like that. I think that's what they're planning anyway. So if he can play, that's great. I think he'd be great. Physical, he's a big body, right? But if not, he goes to Robidas Island. It's not a lot of money. It'll just go on LTIR, and that's fine. But they haven't even made that official yet. He's not even a Leaf yet officially, so they're clearly waiting on something. It's probably a physical.
Yeah, and they might. Yeah, it's definitely physical, and if ultimately he doesn't pass it, and it is worse than they thought, and Steve Simmons was right. Oh well, we missed out on a player who's not like an elite defenseman anyways. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. But Darius, let's dive into some free agency updates now. This article was dropped, and it's about, obviously, we know that Nick Robertson requested a trade, and there's a lot of different targets that have been revealed, and we're going to be going to them, of course, throughout the entire offseason, especially as right now there's kind of a stagnant sea on the front of them actually making a move for a forward, and I don't think they're in any rush to make any moves right now, given the initial rush of free agency being done. But let's start with Alex Nylander. Now, this is an interesting one. He had 11 goals in 23 games last season. He's obviously William Nylander, related to William Nylander. What is your thoughts on this, Darius? And Alexander Nylander, kind of a relative reunion here. He's only 26 years old, 11 goals. I would like to see this. Seems like a little bit of a pipe dream to a degree just because of the current circumstances. But the Leafs have been linked to him, and he's been out there being shopped.
Yeah, it would be a really fun pickup. Obviously, Nylander's brother, right? But, you know, when he was in Pittsburgh and he got signed 2 years ago and he signed 1 year extensions, he didn't do anything. And I think he played 5 games for them last year. He got no points, like zeros across the board. Then I'm pretty sure he was put on waivers. Columbus picked him up. And then he put up 15 points in 28 games, his next 28 games, right? And he scored like a lot of goals. He was scoring a lot of goals on a really bad team. So there's still clearly something to this player. Obviously, he's getting a little older. He's 26. But there could be something to this player, and the Leafs could maybe pick him up on a league min deal, and maybe he slots into your third line. He can offer some depth scoring, right? Because that's what he does. He's a scorer. So it could be an option, but again, like you said, could be a pipe dream, right? It's very far-fetched at this point. There's other options as well, but as a depth option, depth scoring option, a very cheap one because his last couple contracts have been league min. Maybe it's something they look at, right? I just think it was an interesting idea because, of course, it's Nylander's brother, and that'd be cool. I watched him in junior too play a lot, and he was a great player for a long time. They thought he was going to be better than William. Hasn't really turned out that way, but I think there is still something to that player.
Yeah, and you can see this here. As Sprong searches for a sixth NHL team, the Rangers and the Leafs, who lost some scoring, may poke around for a bargain. And not just for Sprong, we'll get to in a second, but Nylander would be a bargain as well. At this point, I think the Leafs are going to look for players, maybe not to the same degree of Tyler Bertuzzi's contract and the player of his level, but someone who can fill in and help. Because, I mean, they have the players. Now, really, all they lost was Tyler Bertuzzi and Nick Robertson if they get traded. Otherwise, it's a pretty similar core, especially the core four with Mitch Marner and things like that. But let's get your thoughts now on Daniel Sprong. Now, this guy's a bit more of an exciting player. Could also get him on a bargain. Only averaged 12 minutes a game last season. Put up 43 points in 76 games. 27 years old. I think this could be a guy that the Leafs at least have a look at. And again, they've been rumored and reported to have interest in Daniel Sprong. So I like it. I think it makes, again, tons of sense. And this would be an adequate Bertuzzi replacement given the price difference between the two guys.
Yeah, it would be adequate for sure, right? Like, you're not going to pay this guy as much as Bertuzzi, and he's going to offer that depth scoring. He's probably going to play in a third line role like he did in Detroit. He was really good in Detroit for what he was last year, right? And they almost made the playoffs. They had that skid at the end. Half a point a game player, right? Only 27 still. So he's going to command more money than somebody like Alex Nylander, for example, right? In the $1 million, $2 million range or something like that. Could be even a little bit more because he can half a point a game player. That's very useful at this point with a lot of teams right at the salary cap, right? So could be useful for the Leafs. Really good depth option. He's still on the board. Nobody signed him yet. So, you know, you got to look. They need a forward. They still need another forward, I think, especially depth scoring, like somebody who can score. And he would be a good option. He strikes me as somebody who could be good in the playoffs, right? So could be an option for them.
Yeah, I like it, and wouldn't be too much. I think this would make a lot of sense, and we'll see if the Leafs ultimately do that. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on these targets. Which one of the two would you prefer? Or as well as let us know, Yani Hakampaa. Hopefully we get a resolution soon because it would be cool to kind of put him into the blue line right now and kind of just see how it fits in given the current structure of the blue line. But let us know. That'll wrap it up. See you soon.